Brilliant. So I think we're going to get started. If anyone joins, hopefully they'll get the gist of what we're talking about. But let me just start by saying good morning to everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us on this warm Wednesday morning. We're thrilled to have you with us for what promises to be an insightful and practical session. Artificial intelligence is rapidly reshaping how we work and live, and understanding how to use it well can help you make smarter choices, improve productivity and simplify everyday tasks, both personally and professionally. We're delighted to be joined today by Nick Crawford from AI for Non-Techies. At Expert Wealth Management, we've had the pleasure of working with Nick in the past, and the feedback has consistently highlighted how accessible, relevant and actionable his sessions are, even for those who haven't yet taken steps into the world of AI. Today, he'll walk us through AI, giving practical examples and easy ways to start applying AI right away in our daily lives. So I hope we're all ready to take away something from his presentation today. Before we get started, a bit of housekeeping. If I could firstly please ask all attendees to switch off cameras and microphones. If not, I can do it from my end. Secondly, if you have any questions, please write them in the chat box. We expect this webinar to run for about 90 minutes, and the session is being recorded with the intention for it to be uploaded to our website in the coming days. So if you do find you need to leave at any point, there will be a chance for you to catch up at your leisure. There will be time for questions at the end, so if your question isn't answered throughout the course of the presentation, we will look to answer these during that time. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to now hand over to Nick to lead us through this exciting session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Harry, and thank you for those very kind words. I think we were just chatting beforehand that actually AI has continued as a conversation in the office for some time. Everything from holiday planning to being more effective, efficient, and creative at work. So let me just get us going for today. So for, excuse my AI Nick version here. So for today, in the next probably about an hour and 10, hour and 15, we'll go through some content. I want to leave a little bit of time for question and answer at the end. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat. It may well be that your question is answered as we go through. And Harry is very kindly offered just to keep an eye out on the comments for me as well. If there's anything that needs an immediate answer, he'll jump in, and then that way we can get through the content and make sure that we've got enough time for questions at the end. So we're going to have a look at an intro to AI, and specifically generative AI. Just what is it? Demystify it a little bit. I'm aware that some of you may be newly coming to AI in some way. Although you've probably used it more than you think you do already. Some of you may be kind of dabbling or even using it kind of daily. Hopefully for those of you that are new, I can remove any fear, make it a bit more fun and a bit more kind of comfortable for you. And if for those of you that are using it more regularly, hopefully I get to show you something that maybe you haven't seen yet, or a way of using it that you haven't seen, so everyone gets to take away something. We'll have a quick look at the main chatbots, so ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Copilot, and just do a little compare and contrast in terms of their strengths and maybe some of their kind of weaknesses. There isn't any one chatbot that's the kind of ruler of all. Depending on the task and the environment that you're working in, they'll have different benefits. From that, we'll then have a very, very brief look at how we ask the chatbots to give us our outputs, so that prompting, as it's called, and a bit of a structure and a framework to work to, because it's probably the biggest difference you can make in terms of the output that you're getting. And then we'll move away from the chatbots and have a bit of a demonstration across image creation, video, and audio. So I've got 5 tools that I think are really useful. I'm not saying that you need them all straight away, but really just to open up that art of the possible. What can we now do with AI? Where is it starting to move to? And I'll kind of mix that up with some demonstrations about things that are clearly going to help you in a work environment, but also going to help you in a personal environment. And I'm very keen that actually if we start to explore and just try AI and get a bit more comfortable, have a bit of fun, use it personally, then when we're coming to use it for work or in a more serious environment, we've got a good starting point for that. And then for all the potential and greatness of AI, there are absolutely risks and limitations that we need to take into account. So we'll kind of touch on those and just look at how we can try and mitigate some of that so that we're using AI in a sensible, responsible and safe way as well. So to introduce myself properly, my name's Nick Crawford. I'm an associate trainer here at AI for non-techies. And an independent consultant helping businesses implement AI within their ways of working. I actually started using AI back in 2017. At the time, I was heading up email and ECRM for Travelodge, the budget hotel group. And we implemented a platform that was writing subject lines for our emails using an early form of large language models and machine learning. And I very skeptically went, there is no way that a machine is going to write a better subject line than me or my team. 33% uplift in engagement and conversion. And I started to look at the subject lines that it was creating. What we did is we took 2 years worth of data, the subject line, the performance results, and that created an algorithm for us. And we would then give the platform the topic we were covering. It would give us 9 AI created versions, and we would always create 1 human version as the control. And in those 2 years, we only ever beat it once in terms of performance. And you start to look at those subject lines and they feel slightly off. Their syntax is slightly strange. The choice of wording just seems a little bit kind of left of field. And I took an interest in that. I have a psychology degree. What makes people tick and how the brain works has always kind of fascinated me. It's helped me very much in my kind of sales and marketing career. And you start to understand that actually we don't read letter by letter, word by word. We look at construct first, we look at syntax first, and then we put the detail. And the machine is really good at finding those patterns and starting to find ways that we can engage and interpret things much quicker, much easier than potentially we can create ourselves. So that got me fascinated within kind of AI and this kind of new field. And since then, I've kind of used it within my kind of marketing environments, working with a number of sectors and a number of environments. And then a year ago, through AI for non-techies, I actually started to work full-time in terms of AI training and consultation. But the approach that we take at AI for non-techies is, as the label says, very non-technical. I don't know how my mobile phone works, but I use it every day. To be honest, I don't even know how my dishwasher works, but I use it every day. So everything that we do is not really necessarily about the technical side of how things work, but actually how can we make it work for us? So AI has actually been around since 1950. So sometimes it kind of helps just to understand some of the building blocks that puts this, just to understand some of the terminology as we go along. So it was Alan Turing. So clearly very well known for the work that he did in World War II on breaking the Enigma code, considered the modern godfather of computing. And in 1950, he wrote a paper suggesting a test, an imitation test that might actually be used to see whether a computer's output could mimic a human's output enough to fool a human invigilator. And that imitation is where the movie with Dominic Cumberbatch gets its name. But the Turing test, as it's now known, set that kind of that thought process of actually could computers mimic humans. And actually a month ago or so, ChatGPT 4.1, so the one just before the latest version, actually passed the Turing test. So the human invigilator could no longer tell in the majority of the cases whether it was a human or a computer output. And that gives us some sense of kind of how fast and well our AI outputs are developing. The term artificial intelligence actually was born in 1956 by Professor John McCarthy. He used it in a symposium in America to deem this term of the art and science of computers thinking and acting like humans. And our first actual chatterbox, as it was known at the time, was created by Professor Jonathan Weizenblum back in 1966. It was actually a psychotherapy chat box. that used substitution methodology to actually mimic a human's response. So if you typed in, I'm feeling a bit tired, it would say, well, how long have you been feeling tired for? Why do you think you're feeling tired? When did you first think you were feeling tired? So that kind of sense of question from a question. But you can imagine back in 1966 how amazing it must have been to feel that you were interacting with a machine that actually was so human-like. And I think it's probably very similar to those of us then in 2020 when we first came across ChatGPT or something like it, that same sense of excitement and wonder as to kind of what the potential was here. So around for a lot longer than we think. Actually, in the 1970s, 80s and early 90s, not much happened with AI, now referred to as the AI winter. Lots of projects got their funding pulled, lots of other things going on. And then possibly the next kind of moment that the public imagination was lit was from Kasparov's famous defeat, so the Grand Chess Master by Deep Blue from IBM, the first time that a machine beat somebody in that kind of public environment on something that was deemed so strategic and so linked around thinking. What's very interesting when you dig into that story a bit deeper is that actually Deep Blue, midway through the game, made a move that was completely out of character and not following any pattern at all. And it subsequently deemed that actually it was programmed that if it didn't know what to do next, to create a random move. And it's now contested as to whether actually that randomness actually kind of helped it win. So for all of our kind of thoughts that AI is straightforward and linear, there is a creative element that comes from randomness as well. And this theory or this kind of thought of bringing AI together with humans, at no point are we suggesting that AI should replace humans, but actually the potential of AI and the creativity, the context, the thinking, the sentiment that a human can bring together, that is a very powerful combination. And then we had a couple of new technologies. So in 2000, machine learning came along. So that's the ability for a computer to see the patterns and outcomes from a large set of data. So that gives us things like our predictive text. And then in 2010, the next stage of that, which was deep learning, we'll talk about that in a second in the next slide. These are the kind of foundation pieces of AI. And then ChatGPT actually came along. There was a GPT that was actually back in 1998. So ChatGPT wasn't the first one, but ChatGPT was really the one that most people got their public first view of this new technology. And as a little aside, GPT, we use it a lot as a phrase. Anybody know what it means? Do you want to just drop it in the comment if you know what GPT stands for? Harry, you're excluded from this because I know that I have told you this already. Okay, I'm going to take chat silence as the fact that maybe not many people know. So it's actually generative pre-trained transformer. So generative in terms of that ability to create, to synthesize something new, pre-trained in terms of the fact it's actually being trained on something, and in this case our human knowledge, and which actually equates to 80% of the internet. And transformer is the technology and model that actually allows that to happen. So you can have that as your next pub quiz question if you need to challenge the family or the grandkids at some point. So in terms of defining AI, a nice simple explanation of that will be this. So computer programs designed to think and learn, they make decisions and perform tasks that humans usually do. So how can we put that together? And this, I'm glad to say, is the most technical element of today's presentation. So we know that we've got artificial intelligence as its overall wrapper of computers thinking and acting like humans. The machine learning, as we said, along in 2000. So think of this is the pattern recognition. So it gives us things like our predictive text. It runs our email spam filters and is part of the recommendation engines that we know. So for example, when Netflix is telling you, because you watch this, you might like that, it's using machine learning to some part. So we can probably think about this element as the thinking side of AI. And then 2010, deep learning. So this actually mirrors the way that the human brain works. So it uses a series of networks and neurons, not only to be able to see the patterns, but actually to find meaning and to be able to create new outcomes from the wealth of data that it's got available to it. So this gives us things like our facial recognition. It's powering most of the voice activated devices that we've got and adds that extra layer onto a lot of the recommendation engines that now exist. And then we've got generative AI. So that's things like ChatGPT or Midjourney, which is an image creation platform. And this is what we'll focus on today, both in terms of how we can use it and some live demos of its capability. So this is the next level up. So not only is this being able to create, recognize and suggest outcomes, but it's actually able to synthesize something completely new. So whether that's words, whether it's images, whether it's music, whether it's code, whether it's ideas, it's actually taking that context and being able to create something new from it. And that's driven by the large language models, so the LLMs. And quite often AI, generative AI, LLMs, they're all interchanged as words, but they are different things. So think of the LLM as the engine of our generative AI. So that's driving this kind of knowledge, this context. We can think of it maybe as a fictional library. So if we had all of the books in the world within a library, that would be the LLM, and the generative AI is the layer that sits over the top that allows us to give that instruction and to get that output from that knowledge that it's kind of contained within. And understanding that helps us when we start to think about prompting and our structure and our approach as to why being structured in that can actually kind of help us make sure we get something that's as meaningful and contextual as possible. So let's have a bit of an overview of the kind of four major large language models. So ChatGPT, I'm sure you probably recognize. Gemini is from Google. Claude is from Anthropic and backed by Amazon. And then Copilot is from Microsoft. So I'm going to just kind of do a little bit of compare and contrast between them, and then we'll take a deeper dive into ChatGPT, have a very quick look at Gemini and just a couple of functions in Copilot, just to give you a feel for them as we go along. So ChatGPT, known as the Swiss Army knife, it can pretty much do everything that a large language model can. So it can create copy, it can give us thought and reasoning, can help us with our thinking, it can create code, it can create images, it can analyze data. So it's a real kind of all-rounder. For a while, in terms of its kind of word and copy output, there was a chat GPT-ness around it. Not only the use of the M dash, so that longer dash, which was kind of clearly, has been attributed now to AI output, although it's upsetting all the copywriters who used to use it properly before it became synonymous with that. ChatGPT 5, which is the version that launched a week or so ago, is starting to kind of round off some of that wording now. So again, AI is progressing every day. So one of the things I'd like you to take away is if you've tried AI in some way and actually didn't think it was all that, wasn't that good, didn't really kind of work for you, keep with it, because the state of change, the rate of change that's happening is so fast that actually something that wasn't particularly good maybe a week ago, certainly a few months ago, will be very different now. Gemini from Google, so it's linked into all of the Google suite, so YouTube, business listings, a lot of kind of language stuff that's available to it. So it's really strong. If you're working within that G Suite already, it links very well. Because it has Google Maps and business listings, it also has probably a better sense of distance and journey and location. So if you're doing any travel planning, and I'll give you an example of that in a second, actually Gemini might be one to kind of work out. It tends to have a better sense as to how long it takes to get from A to B. It's also really strong on language and translation. It has a much better kind of nuance about that. It also has a much bigger memory. So there's a thing called a context window, which is how much information an individual chat can take. Originally for ChatGPT, it was around 100,000 words, which is still considerable, but actually Gemini was much bigger. So if you're doing a large amounts of research and adding in lots of documentation, having a very long conversation, if you're using ChatGPT or Copilot and it starts to feel a bit weaker as you get to the end of those conversations, it starts to forget things that you've told it, then it might be that you're reaching the end of that context window. So just something to be aware of. Claude from Anthropic, the human cell one. So it's trained a lot more on kind of published papers and literature. So the general sense is that actually the copy output from it was much of a much better standard than ChatGPT as its kind of main rival at the time. For a long time, its biggest differentiator was it wasn't linked to the internet, so you couldn't do real-time kind of search and work with it. That changed a couple of months ago, so this is really kind of one to watch. But ChatGPT 5 has kind of changed the landscape again. Its wording is now getting much better, so we will see where they go. Again, a little top tip for you: if you are thinking of buying a subscription to one of the platforms, much as you might be tempted to go annually on it because you'll save the money, definitely only go monthly, because they change so often that actually something that you were using 3 months ago, you may find there's a different version or a new feature in another platform. So for example, when ChatGPT brought its image creation tool out a few months ago, that completely changed the landscape as to how most people, for a basic level, what can create their images. And then Copilot, so that actually sits on the same large language model as ChatGPT. So they're both using 4.1. Copilot is just introducing version 5 now, so that's available within Copilot. Probably the safest because it's wrapped around the Microsoft product suite. And if you're working within that Microsoft Office environment, the hook-ins and the and that ability to use Copilot within Word, Excel, etc., is really strong, and therefore actually it may be beneficial to you. Because its guardrails are so strong, it can be a little less creative. It is also potentially a little flakier in terms of its consistency of output. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. So there is a definite balance to be had between, if you have a choice of all of these, which one to choose. And I think kind of probably ChatGPT, if you had to start with one, is probably still the strongest at the moment, unless you're doing a lot of copy work. But if Copilot is the only option to you within a work environment, or you're heavily into that Microsoft environment already, then absolutely go for that. And it will certainly get you 80% of the way most of the time. So all of these have a kind of free version and then kind of different versions to pay. We will talk about risks and limitations at the end, but just to say it now, if you're using the free version, then you are the payment of that. I'll show you in a second within ChatGPT how to make sure that anything you're entering is unlikely to go into the internet, but we're relying on goodwill. Whereas once you're paying for the platform, then the terms and conditions, the more you pay, the more stringent they are in terms of what is and what isn't used, and in what context and how your data is served. I think there is a pragmatic approach here. So if you're putting overly sensitive data into any kind of chatbot, any kind of AI, you need to be cautious about that. But actually, if you're putting results or data or copy that out of context wouldn't mean anything to anyone, then actually there's a pragmatic approach you can take to whether it's likely to put you at risk in some way or not. So let me just jump out of this and we'll have a quick look at ChatGPT just in a bit more kind of detail. So a couple of things just to start with. Within the settings, so if anyone hasn't seen any of the chatbots at all, they all have a vaguely familiar kind of look and feel around them. So within the settings, there's a couple of bits that you want to have a look at here before you even get started. Within that, so we've got customization as a start. So this is an option that actually allows you to tell GPT how the style and how you want it to approach and interact with you. And as you start to kind of have more chats and more conversations, you'll start to get a feel for the type of output that it gives you, and you can start to adjust that if needs be. So everything from how you want it to refer to you, what do you do? So if you use ChatGPT for one part of your life mainly, you can give it that context. So here I've told it that I'm an AI trainer consultant, that I use it mainly for kind of non-technical training and to avoid jargon and overwhelm. So that kind of just helps set a context. If you're using it for kind of work, the same account for work, personal, lots of different things, you might want to leave that blank just so you don't kind of give it confusion. This is a new feature within ChatGPT 5, so a personality. So this is in part taking some of that input that we had in previous versions and giving it a wrapper around it. So this is about the approach and the style of wording that ChatGPT will give you, from default to cynic to robot. I won't go into too much detail, but if you just click on the information icon, that will then take you to a very easy to understand overview from OpenAI in terms of what it is, how to set it up. And then towards the bottom of the page, a very useful set of comparisons as to the different outputs that each of those will give you in terms of the style. So you might find that actually one of those is better for you. If I was going to choose anything away from the default, cynic probably for me, because it's going to challenge me a bit more. It's not going to be quite so every idea is a good idea. We can sometimes refer to ChatGPT as a bit of a Labrador puppy. It's very keen to please. Every idea you give it is a fantastic idea. Actually, we give it permission to challenge us and to be a bit tougher on us. If an idea is rubbish, tell us it's a rubbish idea. And to reinforce that in terms of this final box here, the traits, so straight talking, professional but friendly, practical and efficient. You can use GPT to kind of give you an overview of these traits of this list. So for everything that we do, we can actually use ChatGPT to give us some idea of what input we want to give it as well. I want it to challenge me. I want it to offer alternatives. I want it to be open to nuance. So just because I suggest something doesn't mean there's not a better idea. But I also want it to be playful and witty. And then here in this last section, we just kind of put about using UK English, avoiding hype, jargons and cliches. If anybody kind of wants a version of this to edit, I'd be more than happy to supply it. Feel free to get in touch with Harry and to let know, and I can kind of forward that on. Or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest bit. So it's Nick Crawford. It will be under my independent consultancy of Twist Consultancy, but I'll be more than happy to kind of provide that there as well. So that's personalization. That's something that not everyone does, so just kind of worth there. And also just under settings, under data controls, we've got this improve the model for everyone. So if you want to ensure or have the best possible chance, certainly if you're using the free version, that what you're putting in isn't going to be used to train other models and go off into the internet, then just toggle that from on to off. But if you're in a paid version, then that should be happening anyway. So most people, when they come to any of the chatbots, start using it a bit like kind of Google on speed. So we're kind of asking it to answer a question for us, to provide maybe some copy or some answers for us. Couple of different ways that we can use the chatbots to kind of help us as well. So one of them is in terms of data analysis. So it's really strong at kind of finding patterns within data. So if we want to kind of upload a file or any kind of image at all, just use this kind of plus button here. And again, most of the chatbots do something similar. And we can add photos and files, or you can just drag it from your Dropbox. So just for speed, in a Blue Peter style, here's a couple that are already. So not for that. So just for data analysis. So we can add in a data file. It will accept zip or CSV, pretty much most formats. And then using a very simple prompt, we can just say, give me a summary of the data, 3 key points of interest, and provide some visuals. And within seconds, you'll get a visualization of that data. And what this starts to do is to shortcut some of that initial thinking. So rather than having to open up a data sheet, so whether it's at work, whether you're running a club or society, whether you're looking at your investment results, rather than having to orientate yourself around that kind of data to start with, we can get AI to give us a very quick, speeded assessment of what we got, both visually and in terms of summary. So we'll come back to that chart in a second. Then we've got our summary, three key points. So that immediately allows us to start to go, okay, I've got some idea about what this is telling us, and now I can take that deeper dive. I can start to ask some more questions or dig into some areas that I'm kind of want to find out more about. These charts, we can make them interactive if we want to, just to give us a different way of kind of viewing it. So that's just that little toggle button here. And we can download it. So actually, if we're using it for work and we're happy with what's being produced, we can then download it as that, or to kind of keep for our own files as well. So that's data analysis. That's available in most of the chatbots as well. And then the second one that I want to kind of give you is using images. So if we go to vision and image, so we can upload an image of anything and the AI can recognize it, see it, understand it, and use it. So from a work context, in those days where we used to kind of write on the whiteboard or put post-it notes on the wall and then somebody would have to sit there and transcribe that, all of that has disappeared. We can now take a photo of that. AI will do that heavy lifting for us. So it's really good at kind of grunt, repetitive, onerous tasks where we want to spend our time doing the thinking and the challenging rather than getting there rather than setting the foundations in the first place. In this case, so a little home case for you, this plant wasn't looking particularly well. This was sitting in my office. So I asked it to identify it and then give me some health tips. It correctly identified it as a peace lily. I knew that was correct because the label was still in the plant pot. And then started to give me some ideas about actually, maybe I'm overwatering it or potentially underwatering it, some areas and places that I might want to put. What really kind of blew my mind away at that time is this line here, move it slightly away from the radiator. So in that photo, it's seen that there's a radiator sitting behind it and recognized that that's going to giving it too much warmth. I've now moved it upstairs into a darker place, doing much, much better. As another little example of that, for anyone who is fed up with kind of meal planning, then we can actually use it for planning our meals. So let's just do that. So we can take a photo of our fridge. This is my fridge. And we can say, right, here's a photo of the fridge, suggest 2 dinner ideas for it. It has then given me those 2 dinner ideas, which, to be fair, are not 2 that I would come up with. That's all very well in terms of having the menu idea, but how do I then cook it? Well, actually, we can get it to then create a menu list for us. So actually, what do I need to do? And because most of the chatbots can now create images, we can actually then create that into a menu card as well. So if you've not started using AI other than maybe for copy creation, there's a couple of ideas about data analysis and using photos to actually be able to kind of input information and then interact and create output from it. What's really remarkable here of this image is that probably 2 months ago, if you had more than 4 or 5 words on the image, it started to become really kind of gobbledygook. This now is probably 99% correct. So again, the speed of change and the speed of improvement that we've got is kind of really, really significant. Last thing on ChatGPT for the moment, you'll see that I'm kind of referring to the projects section here. So as you start to use any of your chatbots, the number of chats that you get will go on and on and on, and therefore actually starting to be able to come back to it, to reference it, to organize it can be really tricky. Projects is a great way of being able to do that. So we can click on new project. So it just sits at the top here. Create a project for us, give it a name and then create it. And then for any chat that we've got, we can then just click the 3 buttons on the side, add it to a project. And that means that we can then add it into that. And then within projects, we've then got this ability to actually add files and instructions. So within the context of all those conversations specific to that project, we can get it to reference information as we go. So we can start to become far more sophisticated with the context that we give it, with the background information we give it. We don't have to upload those every time we're putting in a prompt or an instruction. We can kind of get it to reference those documents. So again, we start to move into an intro plus level here when we're talking about kind of projects, but I wanted to just kind of make you aware of them. And there's nothing else as a way of organizing the conversations that you have. Just to look at a couple of other of the chatbots before we kind of move on. So this is Google from Gemini. So if we just go into the new chat, you can see that actually the interface is very similar. We've still got our plus to be able to add our files. Because it's Google, we can integrate with our G Drive much more efficiently. So again, if you're working with their environment, it might be very good. To give you an example here, so trip planning, as I said, if we just go to the top for the first prompt, and you'll see that there's a bit of a structure to this prompt, which we will kind of talk about in terms of role, context, and output in a second. But I've asked it to act as a travel planner. We were considering going to Paris for a trip. I've got young adult kids, so one of them wanted to go to Euro Disney. We were very much more keen on going to Paris city centre and doing a bit of proper sightseeing. Could we combine the two? And if so, what might that cost? Where might we want to stay? What might be the best option? So if I was doing that in the in a search in a kind of way, I'd go to a number of different websites. I'd take a piece of information. I'd put all that together. It still wouldn't necessarily tell me some advice on where to go or what my budget might be. It would be kind of a good few hours, if not days, of researching. Now I can kind of put this whole kind of request in. Who is it? How long we're thinking we're going for? And then ask it to ask me a series of questions to then start to expand my thinking, which it did. So, what's the budget? Where might I want to go? What time of the year might I be thinking of going? And then you can start to expand it. Actually, the budget might be if I kind of come down to the bottom here, it then starts to do a comparison as to whether I want to fly or whether I want to take the Eurostar. So again, just kind of helping me in a really quick way. And then actually starting to think about actually geographically where I might want to be. So I've got my kind of suggested itinerary that it's given me. And then starting to kind of think about actually different areas that I might want to kind of go to. So again, it's just helping me orientate myself and starting to kind of put together budget, location, activity, itinerary all together. So a use case there, but actually just showing you that Gemini is very similar, but it has its kind of strengths and weaknesses as well. Okay, so that's our kind of whistle-stop tour of the chatbots themselves. We said that everything was kind of built on a large language model. It had a bit of structure. We said that that large language model was, we could think of it as kind of all of the library, all the books in the world. And if you can imagine, if you went to that librarian and said, okay, I would like a book on architecture, so treating it like Google, give me some information, then you're going to get a book on architecture, but it may be not what you want. It may not cover the information you need. It may not actually be that relevant to you. So the types of question and the approach that we take to that questioning, so the prompting that we give our chatbots, can make a real difference. Because if we then go to our librarian and say, I'd like a book on 18th century architecture for houses built in Greece with this type of stone using this technique, the output that we'll get will be much more specific, relevant, and technical. So I'm just going to give you a very quick view as to an approach to take to your prompting once you start to kind of get a bit more familiar with your chatbots. So we do use the term kind of bad and good, not really kind of helpful potentially. So maybe let's call it simple and more advanced as kind of prompting. So our simple prompting, treat it like Google. It's going to be a short sentence, a quick request, probably no context at all, very broad and unclear. So we've got some examples on the right here. Give me 5 ideas for a LinkedIn post on the treatment of arthritis. We will get that, but it will be quite bland, quite generic, It's not really going to hit the mark and won't be any different from a lot of what else is going out there. And one of the kind of outcomes of AI is that there's much quicker and easier to create content. We are naturally lazy as humans, and therefore we take the shortest route. Actually, if we put ourselves back in and go, okay, it can research, it can work on this much quicker, and therefore I have more time to finesse, to ask the right questions, to challenge, then we're going to get much kind of better output from it. As well as kind of think of it as a library, we can maybe think about it as briefing a team. So if you had AI, super smart assistant, super keen assistant, super intelligent assistant, if you've got a task, what team would you want to assemble? So whether that's from a business point of view, HR expert, a legal expert, expert in investment, an expert in copywriting. From a home point of view, it might be an expert in DIY, an expert in insurance broking, an expert in car maintenance. So if you were to open the door into that room and go, right, I need to complete this task, who would you want in front of you? And as importantly, what information would you want to give them to get that task done? How would you brief them? What examples would you give them? What instruction would you give them? Think about your prompting in that way, and you will see a remarkable difference in the approach that you take. So one of the frameworks that AI for non-techies use is this nice simple 3C. So a character, a context, and clarity. So give the AI a character. What role, what task do you want to, what expertise you want it to have? You can give it multiple characters. So you can say, I need you to be this, this, and this. It doesn't have to be one at a time. But it, as you would imagine, allows it to understand the context and the framework of which it's going to be working. And if appropriate, give it one for you. So quite often I'll say, I want you to act as an expert copywriter. I'm a AI for non-technical audience trainer. So it knows kind of how the dynamic that it's working to. The context then is the information that you can give to brief it. So do you have examples of previous outputs that you can kind of give it to have? Can you give it some images? Can you give it some data? If we stick with our LinkedIn posts, have you got examples of posts that work really well that you can give it? Because AI is so good at finding the patterns, it can see that by example much better than you can explain it. So if you've got them, convert them to a PDF. If you've got an image, upload it in some way, and the AI will be able to see that, make sense of it, find the patterns and the nuances within it much better than you can actually explain it. And then the third C is our clarity. So giving a clear instruction. What output do you want? What structure do you want that output to be? How are you going to be using that output? And do you want it kind of short, long, complicated, expert, simple, based on who your audience is, actually helping to make sure that the final output is exactly fit for purpose. So it's a very kind of simple prompt, but we can see how it expanded. So rather than give me 5 LinkedIn ideas for an AI trainer, actually we can expand that, and we've just color coded slightly across those key areas. So our character, act as a content strategist and copywriter. So we're giving the AI a character. I am, in this case, an AI trainer for non-technical audience. So that's our roles. Our context. I'm looking to create LinkedIn posts for my personal profile. First, I'm looking to brainstorm some strong ideas. So we're not looking for the content, we're looking for the ideas of the posts. AI really strong at idea generation and as a thinking buddy. We're continuing with that context. We need to provide insight, education, and value for my target audience without it being salesy. I've attached details of my audience. So if you've got an audience profile, or just again highlighting, if we can give the AI information, great. Leverage their pain points to create strong content ideas. I've also attached examples of posts that did well before. And then our clarity. An idea should be a topic, has 3 bullet points to cover, and reasons why it would help our audience. I'd like 5 in total, and produce the ideas in a nicely formatted way. So actually that means we can copy and paste it if required. So again, you can tell it the output. So whether it's a table, whether it's as a document, whether it's in a formatted approach in some way, you can actually give it that information as well. So as you would imagine, prompting in itself is a complete topic. It's something that we kind of do dedicated sessions on, but I just wanted to give you enough to be able to approach your prompting. Let's get rid of that. In a more structured way, if you start to kind of get familiar with chatbots in some way. So our character, our context, and our clarity. Okay, so let's move away from our chatbots and then just start to look at some different ways that AI can be used. We've looked at it a little bit around kind of copy creation. So it's really strong at taking a good structured prompt, a good brief, and creating that first draft, or the ideas and then the first draft. We definitely then want to sandwich in our human instruction, the AI output, and a human review, edit, adding context, experience, nuance to the final output. I would never suggest to copy and paste out. It's also very good at kind of strategy and advice, and we'll have a look at a little bit of how we can use AI to simulate conversations to kind of help us practice difficult situations or new environments as well. As we kind of start to look at, it can create images, and we'll kind of have a look at that in a little bit. But I'm going to actually start with video output. So one of the things that we can do within AI is to create avatars of ourselves. So that allows content to be able to create it at speed. It means that rather than having to set up a recording environment every time we need it, or if we want to address our teams, or we want to send a kind of personal outreach message to friends and family, rather than having to make sure that my hair is done, that I'm in a quiet environment, actually I can create my avatar, and then I can use that for any text that I want. So rather than me explain it any further, let's meet AI Nick.
Hi, this is AI Nick. I hope this is a good introduction to AI and that real Nick's looking after you. I've never actually spoken these words in a video, but this avatar created after 2 minutes of filming is pretty lifelike, right?
So 2 minutes of filming. There is a safeguard. So this is a platform called HeyGen. So it will ask you to repeat a key phrase that it gives you as a permission to be able to use your likeness. It will then create that avatar. And so I can either then text to speech, so I can write in my text or drop my text in, and it will create that video avatar for me. Or I can record it, which gives you a bit of a better kind of vocal nuance, but it will then lip sync that through. So again, to be able to create at speed this sense of messaging is a real kind of advantage in certain circumstances. Where I think this kind of takes it to the next level is once I've got my digital avatar, I then have access to between 50 and 100 languages. So I'm half South American. My mum is Colombian. My dad was English. Because he spoke no Spanish, we didn't speak any Spanish as kids. A regret for all of us. The kids once upon a time thought I could speak Spanish because I could say a few words and some food and drink would turn up. They then did GCSE Spanish and realised that I was a bit of a fraud, but that is a different story. But now not only can I speak Spanish, but actually I can speak a Colombian version of that Spanish.
Hola, soy la IA Nick. Espero que esta sea una buena introducción a la IA y que el verdadero Nick esté cuidando de ti. Nunca había dicho estas palabras en un video, pero este avatar, que se creó después de 2 minutos de grabación, es bastante realista, ¿no?
So this kind of really freaks me out because I have definitely never said those words, but that is Spanish in my voice. So I played this to my mum. Apart from freaking out and going, when did you learn Colombian? She was able to understand it. It's not perfect, but it's absolutely understandable. And again, one of the things to take away from today is that AI is the worst today that it's ever going to be. So it will only get better and fast as well. But actually, whether you've got friends and family that you want to be able to communicate in their native tongue, from a work point of view, if you've got multinational languages in your customer base, rather than welcoming them and onboarding them and forcing them to use English, actually could you do that and give them their training or their kind of first documentation in their native language? If you've got keynote speakers that are having to address different areas of the world, actually could that first 2 minutes be in their language? And we're not suggesting that we have to pretend that this is real. We can absolutely be transparent about it. But that effort and that ability to be able to create output in multiple languages at speed suddenly means that we can do much more than we used to be able to do a mere few years ago. So that's digital avatars. I want to kind of just take you through 5 non-chatbot applications, just to give you the scope of what AI is kind of can do at the moment. So the first one is Perplexity. So this is really strong as a research tool. So it actually uses a number of the large language models together, but it will do a much deeper piece of research for you, and actually was doing this way before the ChatGPT and equivalent started to add research mode into their outcomes. So we can see that we've got a fairly simple kind of first request here. Market sectors or industry research. It'd be useful to someone working in the UK expert wealth management consultants over the last 24 months. I've pre-run this because this does take a little while to kind of give you. And what we can start to see is it gives us a very succinct but detailed overview to start with across what have we got? Performance and trends, key sectors, macro drivers and regulatory change, future outlooks. What it then does really nicely, as well as kind of tabulate some of that results, is to give us some considerations for what else we might want to consider. So it's really good at helping guide us through some of this kind of research and some of the questions. But what really kind of helps here is that every single source that it uses is kind of listed as well. So from a confidence point of view, if you're using this personally, it means that you can fact check everything. And again, as we will talk about on risks and limitations, AI does make things up, and therefore our typical data and common sense in terms of just checking the facts shouldn't go away. So we can do that, and clearly from a business point of view, it means that not only can you fact check, but you can make sure that the sources are relevant to your business, your industry, and those that you'd want your customers to use as well. So as an addition to your chatbots, Perplexity is kind of a great place to come to if you want a bit of a deeper dive, but in a way that you can kind of package up. You can then kind of switch that so that once you've got this kind of summary and your answer, you could then ask it to create a summary paper for you, or a series of kind of blog posts or information pieces. So it has that kind of function built within it as well. So in terms of kind of being able to absorb information, one of the best ways that I find of doing that is through being able to listen to information. So this is Notebook LM from Google. So it's part of the Google AI suite. There are topics called notebooks that you can create. And what this means is that we can upload a number of different files in a different kind of formats and bring that all together. So rather than necessarily going out to the website to get information, if you've got information, so whether that's investment reports, whether it's white papers that you kind of downloaded, or webinar notes, whether it's your own documentation, then you can load it all into one place. So we can link here quite nicely websites. We can link in YouTube content because it's part of the Google suite, so it makes it really nice and easy. If we've got information within our Google area, we can do that, or we can upload files in a number of formats from PDF to audio. And once you've got that notebook, then what it'll do, similar, we can kind of summarize that information. So this part acts very much like the chatbots that we've looked at. So we can interact with that in a written way and actually start to ask it questions. But what we can also do is we can create an audio output. So actually to create this information and give it to us as if it was a podcast. And we can either just kind of click one button and get it to do that generally, or we can give it a bit of a steer when we're asking to create and go, what I specifically want to focus on is this area. So here I've just put together an infographic on AI jargon from AI for Non-Techies and a prompting document just for examples. Created the audio. So let's just have a little play of that and just give you a flavor for what that looks like, or sounds like even.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're surrounded by artificial intelligence. I mean, often without even realizing it, right?
Absolutely.
From asking Siri about the weather to, getting recommendations on your favorite streaming service. AI is quietly doing its thing, but then you hear terms like generative AI or large language models, and suddenly it feels like a whole new language you need to learn.
It really can feel that way.
So you get the gist. Now, we do have to put up with the slightly cheesy American accents. We can't change those as they stand at the moment. I'm sure that will happen at some point. So a really nice user case for this. I had a friend of mine who was doing some online learning. They were really struggling with a module. They just couldn't wrap their heads around it at all. They loaded the course notes into Notebook. They loaded the presentation into Notebook, had it turned into that podcast, and then being able to have that audio interplay of the topics, the themes, the content meant they suddenly could grasp it much, much better. So for those of us that don't always learn from just words on the page, this is a really nice way. You can download that audio file once you've created it, so you can take it and treat it like your podcast when you're driving the car, walking the dog, taking your lunchtime walk. All of that is a really lovely way of doing it. We can go one step further with this as well. So as well as kind of playing the audio, we can actually interact with it and ask questions. So as we're listening, as we're kind of thinking of things, we can ask some questions.
So our mission today is, well, oh, hey there, what's up?
Hi, this is Nick, long-time listener, first-time caller. I just wondered if you could maybe give me one or two of the key phrases that are used that maybe people feel are most confusing.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for calling in. So glad to have you join us live.
Welcome, Nick. That's a fantastic question to kick us off.
You know, it's funny you ask, because those two terms you just mentioned, generative AI and large language models, are perfect examples.
Absolutely. They're often thrown around, and it's easy for people to feel lost.
Right, because AI as a general concept feels familiar now, doesn't it?
Yeah, but then we introduce these more specific, advanced terms.
And suddenly it's like,
so depending on your kind of way you want to learn, that ability to interact is fantastic. It also means that we can, we can interact verbally. So rather than having to kind of type out, which kind of tends to block the thinking a little bit, then actually we can use voice to be able to do that as well. Just while I'm thinking about it, we can do that within the chatbots a little bit as well. So actually within chat, there's a kind of voice mode. So let's kind of just demo that as well, because again, it just gives us a different way of being able to interact. Quite often, if I'm waiting for somebody in a car park, I can just pick up my phone, ask a question of chat, think about something, get it to think about something, and actually use voice to be able to do that as well. Hi chat, I wondered if you could perhaps give me 3 ways that somebody coming to AI for the first time might really be able to kind of make use of it and see the power that you've got.
Absolutely. Let's keep it nice and straightforward. So if someone's brand new to AI and just dipping their toes in, here are 3 very practical ways to see what it can do. First off, they can use AI for simple automation of repetitive tasks. Think about scheduling emails or summarizing documents, just basic things that save a bit of time and show how AI can handle the mundane bits. Second, they can try it out for brainstorming or idea generation. For instance, if they're working on a project and they just need a few creative prompts, AI can help spark some new angles without any fuss. And finally, they can use it to personalize their interactions or content. So if they run a small business, they can start by using AI tools to tailor their marketing messages a bit more, making them more relevant to different audiences. In short, keep it practical, a bit creative, and they'll soon see how useful it can be.
That's brilliant, chat. Thank you. Goodbye.
You're very welcome. Glad I could help. And no worries at all. Have a great rest of your day.
So again, a really nice way of just being able to kind of interact and think about that. And then for every conversation you have, you'll have the transcript of that as well. So you can always go back to it, always kind of pick it up, get those ideas from it. So that was Perplexity Notebook as 2 ways of being able to both research and then synthesize information to be able to summarize it. Now we're going to have a look at images and video and music as a different way through Midjourney and Suno. So Midjourney, this is the only application that is paid for only. Everything else has a freemium model, so you can play with everything else that I've kind of shown today to get you started. But But as well as most of the large language models now creating images, there are some more specialist ways that we can kind of do that, which give us a bit more of a creative element to our image. So just to kind of tee this up, if anybody has any wild thoughts of an image that they would like to create, please feel free to drop that into the chat. So to get your creative juices flowing, we've had things like a polar bear juggling oranges. We've had a Oompa Loompa walking a sausage dog through Times Square. We've had a platypus, duckbill platypus playing cricket. What was the House of Lords? What was Lords and then became the House of Lords. So if anybody wants to kind of drop in any thoughts they've got on an image that we can create through the chat, please feel free. And if not, I will think of an idea myself. So just give you a second to do that. And what we'll do is we'll run it through Midjourney and we'll run it through ChatGPT so we can compare and contrast how those kind of images look as well. Jonathan straight in, thank you. Pigeon going on safari holiday and realizing they are the prey. Okay, very nice. Or could have been beaten by a goldfish playing guitar. I do like that. Let's go with that. So we're just going to put in here photorealistic. And then we have to give it an environment.
How about we do Nick, how about we do a rec vote? We'll start combining people's ideas.
Yes, absolutely. So goldfish playing guitar in a pirate shipwreck. That's never type in public. Okay, let's see what we get there. So we'll set that going. We'll also give it to ChatGPT to do as well. So new chat just sits on the top left-hand side for anyone that needs to know that. Create. We'll probably do that already, but we will just give it the instruction. And we'll set that going and see what we get from that as well. So we can see that it's kind of started that image generation. For those of us that are old enough to remember dial-up internet, I think this is now the closest anybody who's only ever known Wi-Fi to having to wait for a page to actually complete. So let's see what we've got. So we've got our images through Midjourney here. So as we can see, that's like a one-line prompt. If you can think it, you can probably create it. So again, one of our key takeaways for today is that really the only limitation to AI now is your own imagination. And once we can start to see how easy it is to make a start with AI, if we can converse with it in some way. But the real magic, the human part of this, is having those ideas in the first place, the creativity. It unlocks all the potential from you. So I can't draw, I can't create in this kind of way, but I've got ideas and imagination, and now I can creatively unlock that talent. So we've got all kind of fairly realistic. That's almost looking like it's in a goldfish bowl of a shipwreck there. So we like that one a lot. Let's see the one that's going to maybe give us. Let's maybe stick with this one. I kind of like that one. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to then animate that image just to start to see how easy it is to create from an image video animation as well. So we're all doing this within Midjourney. This is a fairly new feature that Midjourney have added. Once upon a time we used to jump between platforms, but let's kind of just do that as well, and we'll see that come about in a second. Let's go back to, so we can see that we definitely have a goldfish, we definitely have a guitar, and we definitely have a shipwreck. But we've got a very different kind of approach between those images. Far more detail, far more depth of field, far more creative. So absolutely, ChatGPT in 90% of what you're doing to create an image will do a very good job. But if you need something that's very specific, then maybe using something specialist. And that's maybe one of the things about, start with 2 or 3 platforms that you get really familiar with. And then if there's something very specific, there might be something that's just a bit more dedicated to do that job for you. So while they're kind of rendering, the last bit of fun that we'll have is Suno. So this is a text to music generator, and this will generate let's just take that prompt from what we had before. Can I get that back? Let's just type that in, that's fine. So goldfish. In fact, let's make it a pirate goldfish. Okay, so we've got a very simple prompt here. You can upload your own lyrics if you wanted to. You can upload your own music and it will kind of synthesize that. What we do need is a style of music. So as our last bit of audience participation, we're thinking about a pirate goldfish in the ocean. Who would like to suggest a genre of music to go with for this? Either to complement or to go completely as a juxtaposition. Soft rock is the first one in, David. You get a gold star for speed. Let's go with that. We'll leave it open in that way. I guess we could, if you have a, do you want kind of 80s rock, 90s rock? Have you got a decade of soft rock anthem maybe? I don't know. Let's give it a little boost and see where we go. Okay, so let's let that run and create. This shouldn't take very long. You always get a couple of versions of this as we go. So Golden Fins, Strumming Dreams. It's already got a potential around it. So scales like stars in the tide's embrace, under the waves a quiet place, strings hum soft in the liquid glow, golden fins strumming low. Oh, golden fins, strum again in the blue where the time won't bend. Oh, golden fins, play your song in the deep where you belong. Let's give that a whirl.
Soft in the liquid glow, golden fins strumming low. Oh, golden fins strum again in the blue where time won't bend. Oh, golden fins.
All right, let's give the second one a go. That's fine.
Soft in the liquid glow, golden fins.
probably enough of that. That's very Muzak, isn't it? So we can see how quickly we were able to kind of create that. Some of the creativity around those kind of lyrics and the approach we take. Unfortunately, we didn't get our video working. So again, we are live demoing without the aid of a safety net. It is fair to say that AI won't always work. So we'll just let that try again, see if we get anything. But just to give you some idea of kind of the quality that you can get from this is from the gallery. And actually what you can do is you can have a look at these and see the prompt that was used for them as well. No, it's not liking it. There we go. All right. Sometimes in the demos, it doesn't quite go right. So that was Midjourney and Suno as image creation, image to video, and music generation. The last one that I want to show you is Gamma. So this is around an AI ability to create text to presentations. So Gamma.app, and in the top left-hand side, we've got our create new using AI. And what we can do here is we can create from pasting in text. We can generate from a simple prompt a presentation, or we can upload our files and our URLs. We can then start to chain our AI together. So actually we could use AI to give us, or ChatGPT, for example, to give us an outline of a presentation, and then pop it into here to be able to do that. For speed needs, I'm just going to go generate here. And let's pick a topic. Ways. So really simple prompts just to get that outline. So what it then does is it starts to create these cards. So we can generate, we can edit these cards if we wanted to at this point, to be able to actually then just change some of that context. We can decide whether we want kind of short or long, and we can give it a style. So let's just give it the typical style here. And I'm just going to hit generate just so you can see the speed at which from one line we can then start to create a presentation. So for all those of us that have sat there going, I've got this information, I now need to present it in some way. What do I put on what slide? What's my layout going to be? How do I visualize that content? Then this is a fantastic way of being able to jumpstart that process. It's quite often good enough, certainly, to be able to kind of use internally or personally. So if you've got, if you're running a society, or you've got to present back to your society some information on your monthly or annual reports, then rather than create that slide deck bit by bit, we can kind of just do it using Gamma or something similar. You can see that we've got a nice kind of layout here of key information. It's created the images for us, although we can regenerate those or add in our own if we want to. And it's just giving us a really nice way of being able to kind of present basic information. So you can imagine if you've taken, I don't know, a white paper and you need the key facts on that to present in 3 or 4 slides, then this is a really kind of nice way of being able to do that. So you will get a copy of these slides and a recording of this. So it'll give you a point of reference to go back to as you need it. So that was Perplexity for research, Notebook for absorbing information, Midjourney and Suno for image and music creation, and Gamma for a text to presentation mode. The last thing to kind of pick up before we open to Q&A is just around our risks and limitations. So we've picked up on a little bit of this as we've gone along, but for all of that potential, we do need to be aware of how we're using AI and what we're getting from it. So there is bias built into AI, and that's not a bias within the AI itself, but because it's been trained on the internet, our human bias in the content of that has come through. So whether that's political, whether it's definitions of beauty, whether it's the fact that there's as much social comment as there is published white paper, and therefore it's giving kind of false information. So we absolutely need to be clear and careful about a human oversight and a human governance. Sanity check everything you're getting out, think about what's getting out, what's being produced, and ensure that that you're applying your human knowledge to that as well. So whether that's kind of asking the AI to kind of fact check, whether it's running multiple versions in different tools, or making sure you've got a clear idea of the source information, all of that is kind of part and parcel of this of the control that we need to have. We touched on data privacy in terms of the difference between using a free version and a paid version for data that you're putting in. There is clearly the issue, so we need to be pragmatic about that. So if you've got sensitive data, then you potentially redact it. Don't put in, personally identifiable information if you're not comfortable with that, and certainly not within a work environment. But actually then being able to use to create images, to run data profiles, to summarize information. 90% of what we're doing is unlikely to come up with a data issue out of context of what we're actually doing. Hallucinations is the third one. So this is the fact that AI does make things up. So again, linked to the fact that there's as much social comment as there is published paper. So as a famous example, when asked to how to stop cheese running off a pizza, the answer came back from ChatGPT, use glue, because that was actually in a Reddit comment. Again, the structure of your prompting can really help. So the more information you can give, the better context you can give, the instruction not to use any information that it's not able to refer to and source, all of that will kind of help reduce the likelihood that AI tries to make something up because it's trying to give you an answer. And actually one of the biggest areas of focus in the new version of ChatGPT, so version 5, is to reduce that hallucination output. They haven't cleared it completely, but it is getting much, much better. Plagiarism, without a doubt, the internet was used to train the models. There is a load of copyrighted and protected information that was used to train the models. There are a number of court cases that are being used for that and showing that that was the case. But actually, from a copyright point of view, if you are using AI to create an image and you have used it as a tool, then actually you currently, based on the early court cases, own that content. So as long as you're not copying something that already has copyright or IP on it, so it's a public figure or a complete copy of something that already exists, then actually it's yours. So that's from a legal point of view. How transparent you are, certainly in a work context, about whether you've used AI or not is a business decision. But if you've used Photoshop to create an image, if you've used Word to check the spelling, if you've used Canva to create an image, you wouldn't necessarily reference that. So AI probably can be used and considered in that same tool set. And then the last one, sustainability. So absolutely, AI has an environmental impact, like any technology and any modern process. So yes, we need to be, take that into account, and it is a consideration. It's not for me to say that it's right or wrong. What we can also look at is the balance. So what does AI provide to us based on the resource it's drawing? So I did a talk for a marine conservation society, and actually they've got AI that's being used to help protect whales through tracking whale song. They've got AI that's being used to scan images and to be able to look at coral bleaching or plastics in the ocean. So we need to balance the good that AI can do against the environment that it's taking. And also maybe AI can become, continue to be part of our solution. So actually, will it help us with some of those environmental issues, some of the sustainability issues in the future? And therefore the problem becomes part of the solution. So thank you very much for your time and attention. The last thing to say is if you want to continue with your journey, then one of the easiest ways to do that is through our academy. I will just drop in the chat a link to that. So there's 7 days free on that to kind of start with. There is a whole ton of information that's available to you in terms of learning. recorded live sessions with demos and deep dives into specific areas, as well as access to a community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to get more familiar with AI in a non-technical way. So I've just dropped that link in the chat as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Nick. Very, very insightful and thought-provoking as we hoped and expected. Just a reminder to everyone in attendance, if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat box. I appreciate we don't have much time before the end of this session. But I think the thing that stands out to me most out of everything you've said and whilst listening is AI isn't autonomous in the sense that the outputs will be reliant on what the user inputs. But also AI is the worst it'll ever be. So I suppose my question to you, Nick, is where do you see AI going in the next few years?
So I think there's a lot of talk at the moment of a thing called agentic AI. So rather than having to put in a specific instruction to the AI and wait for it to create the outcome, actually you'll give it an objective that you want it to do and it will work out how to actually create that. So we've already started to see AI can spin up its own terminal and browse the web, click on buttons. In theory, you can give it your credit card details and say, right, I want to find a holiday for 2 people on this date, go and book me something. No one is recommending that you do that at the moment. The security around AI is not strong enough that you want to start giving your details through. But I think that sense of it becoming a seamless extension of our daily lives will continue. So in the same way, we don't really think about the fact that there's a box sitting in the room that we ask questions of verbally anymore. But I think there will be devices. I think we will click a button on our phone and talk to our AI far more. And it will become that companion of going, how do I find out about this? How do I do that? Could you check my emails for me? I think that's kind of part of the route. And I think secondly, it will continue to unlock the limitations that we each individually have. So whether that's, I want to understand more about the data investments, but that's not what I'm trained in, but it can help me with that. I want to know what questions I need to ask of my advisor so I can get the most of that meeting. So this ability to kind of learn, practice, but interact, I think it's a really, really exciting time for those that embrace it.
Brilliant, thank you. We had another question come in. So it's a valid point from where I'm sitting, is that a lot of information online is sat behind paywalls. Do LLMs, the likes of ChatGPT, Copilot, have access to this information when producing their results?
So they have access to anything that's publicly available. So it does depend on how that information is set up and how secure it is. What I would say is that it's a great place to start because, when we're doing our traditional search, yes, okay, you'll find your Telegraph information or your Reuters information and it's behind the paywall. But actually, that's probably been syndicated several other places. AI can do that within seconds to go and find that information or give you the source for it. I think also that there is a growing consideration from businesses that actually they want to appear in the chat search. So there's this whole tipping point between the volume of Google search and the volume of search that's coming from AI created requests, and therefore reducing the amount of paywall, or certainly giving most people some information to start with before they have to then invest further, will allow more and more information to become publicly available as a first hit.
Brilliant. And another question we've had, and I'm a bit unsure as to the context. So the question is, can you subscribe for a group as users, i.e. for a team, or is it individual only? I'm a bit unsure whether that's referring to the LLMs themselves or whether that's referring to the AI Academy. So I don't know if you can answer both of those.
Yes. So within the chatbots and the large language models, there are subscription models that allow what they call multiple seats. So you can have one subscription that will cover from 5 users up to 250, 500 users, depending on how much you're paying. Within the Academy, typically it is based on an individual basis, but I'm sure if there is an organization that wanted to have a corporate account, then just reach out and contact myself or Heather as the founder or send an inquiry in, and I'm sure we can have that conversation.
Lovely, thank you. And then I suppose probably one final question for me, because I'm aware that we're getting to the end of our session, but if you just wrote it down here, so if you had to recommend one way in which, say, someone's never used AI in their life, and following this meeting they want to give it a go, what is the one way you'd suggest they start out? Which program, what sort of question, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I would probably start with ChatGPT is the most kind of familiar to most people, and just do something fun. So whether that is taking that snap of your fridge and asking it to create a meal suggestion for you, whether it is asking it to give you 3 ways, if you've got something in your life that you're trying to achieve. So let's take an easy one. I need to drink more water. Most of us need to drink more water. So actually, what's an easy way for me as a 7-day plan to drink more water? It will give you some ways to just start by waking up in the morning, have a drink of water. And then day 2, every time you have a hot drink, have a drink of water. And then it will suggest to you, well, do you want me to create a little image for you that you can just put on your phone or print out and put on your desk? So just find something that you want to achieve, and just without overthinking it, just ask ChatGPT, I want to achieve this. What's the best way of doing it? And just have the conversation and just have a little fun, get familiar. It will very soon become very comfortable for you.
Lovely. Well, I think time is about up, so I'm just going to close out the session now. But I think from me, we hope you found, all the attendees, I hope we found today's session both as interesting as useful as I did. As I mentioned at the start, we will be aiming to upload a recording of this webinar to our website in the coming days, should you wish to revisit any parts at a later date. Similarly, as Nick's mentioned, he'll send me out the slides from today's webinar, which I can distribute if you wish to do so, if you wish to have a look over those again. But for now, thank you again, Nick, for your insights as always, and for all of you for attending. Enjoy the rest of your week, and goodbye for now.
Pleasure. Thank you all for your time.